On this episode, we talk about recruiting for startups, tools you can use to grow and plan an estimated budget, and how to help a dropshipper come to reality. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 18 of the AskEngine show. We're excited to get in. Blake obviously is gone. He's spending a week in Disney World, Land?
Either way.
World? Whichever one. So hope you're having a fun time, Blake, if you're watching this. We got 3 questions for you today, and so we're going to go ahead and get started in with the questions. Question number 1 comes from Cora, and it's asking, how do you recruit for a startup team?
That's a great question. We're doing that currently here right now. In fact, it's interesting to see Blake gone. You notice I've been gone more than Blake, actually raising capital. We just closed our $2 million seed round for Engine for some really good e-commerce savvy investors. And so we're in the process of doing the same thing. We're a team of 5 right now, have 6 open positions now, mm-hmm. Everything from a C-level operations person to 4 engineers to basically an outreach consultant, how to talk to other developers about what we're building and get their feedback. So it's pretty neat to do it. And I've done this before. So the first few hires of a startup team are the most important. Once you hit about 5 to 12 people, you've really set the DNA of the culture of the company for a long time. And as I look back on our last company, we did that really, really well. I mean, the 5 people that were the founding team at Acumen were 5 of the best people. They all had upward skills, and they all ended up managing teams of 20 to 30 to 40 at some point when we hit our peak of success. And that's really strange to find that. But so what we did, we had 5 great people, and then as we moved to 12, which is the phase we're in right now here at Engine, A's attract A's. So we had 5 A players, and then as you got 5 more and 7 more, they were also A's, mm-hmm. And we did that really well. It was really easy to communicate the culture at that point. I don't know that we even necessarily did it, but from 12 to 30 was likewise the same. Mm-hmm. We fired our first couple people at about 30, and they were not bad employees. They just weren't A players. They were not. They weren't driven by the same things we were. They were good employees. They would clock in at 9 o'clock, and you couldn't say anything bad about them from 9 to 5, and then they would be out the door at 5 o'clock. They didn't have the passion. They didn't have the drive. They didn't have the love for what we were building like the others. So, we weeded out some mediocre people at that point. People that probably wouldn't have been fired from any other job. And where we started to mess that up was right after we figured out the Facebook strategy. So we grew too quickly. So we grew from probably $1.5 million of revenue on this one business to over $100 million annual run rate. And we did that in like 4 or 5 months. So we went from 30 to 50 people fairly rationally, and then from 50 to 250 people unrationally. Can you fog this mirror? Yes. And so we hired based off resumes rather than off passion and shared love of what we were building. And boy, we suffered from it. Yeah. The first 5 people in a startup have to be athletes. They have to be able to play multiple roles. They have to be infinitely flexible. You're not hiring for a position in those first 5 usually, other than engineers, obviously. I mean, you don't want your engineers necessarily running around doing
programmers sweeping the floors.
Exactly. And as you get up to about 30 people, you start to hire specialists, mm-hmm. and that's a big switch. And we did that one well, but at the end, when you're hiring all specialists, and we thought we needed grown-ups in the room, and you're hiring 40-year-old people with 20-year resumes in that field, they came in with preconceived notions of how to do things, and they were often wrong. So that's how you start.
Yeah, and I think what's super interesting is when it comes to, so like last night at 11:30 we're communicating and talking. The first couple people that you bring into a business, like you said, they have to be driven, they have to be passionate, and they have to have a common goal. Something that was said, so we had our first board meeting yesterday, and something that I couldn't get out of my head that one of our investors said was that you have to think of your company, especially starting off, you got to think of it as a sports team, and your family, and you love each other and you care about each other, but the best players play. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you're recruiting talent, you need to recruit on culture first, and then you need to recruit on is this person willing to put in the work to be the best. And what I mean by that is that if you came to me and said, hey, we're going to bring on another marketer, or we're going to bring on X amount of person, whoever that is, you have one of two people. You have the person who gets excited because it's competition, and then you have the person who gets afraid and starts acting out of fear. And you want to hire people in the beginning who are competitive. You want to hire people who want to be the best, and they're not afraid to flex that muscle every once in a while.
No, you're right. I mean what I say. The first 5 people set the DNA. It's really entrenched by the time you get to 12 people. So you've got to be really careful with those. I don't mean your hourly employees that aren't doing things. The people that are really core to your team and building stuff. So.
Yeah. Perfect.
Good. What's next?
Second question.
Oh, and if you're an engineer and you're in Arkansas, call us.
Now.
Yeah, we're hiring.
We're hiring very quickly. All right, so second question is, it comes from Core as well, and it's asking, what are the sources or tools which can help me to make estimated online advertising budgets for an e-commerce site?
Did we build one of those? Are we building those right now?
Yes.
I don't know if it's done yet, but
yeah,
if it is done?
Yeah, the MVP of it. So we will have in the description below a link to the Google Sheet download. And this is something that it's a equation that you built and built, $100 million e-commerce business off of the back of. And so
how often do you see this equation? First of all, you work with me. You see it daily.
Oh, yeah, it's on the whenever we start talking about marketing, whether it be internal or external for helping other companies doing some consulting work, things of that nature. The first thing, we clean the board off, and then you write the equation, right? So so we're gonna. Joe, we're going to put this on. We're going to put this on the screen and
is it going to be
walk
like right
through.
here, like right in front of me, or up here, or where?
We'll put it here.
Flash in front of my face,
and then it'll stay up there.
Okay, great. So the first thing you have to look at is, let's say you're doing pay-per-click advertising. We need to know how much each visitor is going to make you in terms of profit. So the way we calculate it is pretty simplistic, and there's other things that go into it, but in its general form, there's about 5 or 6 things that go into this equation. So the first thing you start with is your average order value, and that's simply the average ticket, how much money each customer gives you on an average transaction. So let's say it's $100. And you take from that $100 your cost of goods sold. So let's say it's $50 to buy the product, or if you're really good and build your own and you're vertically integrated, maybe it's $20 instead of $50. And then fulfillment cost. And there's a couple different ways you can look at fulfillment costs. You can look at it as a true variable cost and say, well, this is the cost of the box, this is the cost of the postage. But what I like to do is add in some more things. So all the fixed overhead of fulfilling all your orders, and divide it by the number of orders. So that includes your customer service, your rent, your warehouse. It includes the carry cost of your inventory. So a bunch of different things. So that's really the first 3 variables there. And if you take those, average order value minus cost of goods sold minus fulfillment costs, that's really the contribution margin you make off of an individual sale. So let's say it's $100 minus $50 minus $10, well, you're making $40 of contribution margin per sale. Well, that's great. That's a per sale basis. Now we need to get it into a per visit basis. So the next variable is conversion rate. So what percentage out of 100, how many people out of 100 are going to buy this product? And you have to do this multiple times, which I'll get into, but let's say it's 3%. So you got $40 of contribution margin. 3% of the people buy. What's that? $1.20 per visit in contribution margin that you make. Great. Then there's lifetime value. So how many purchases will that one purchaser make? So if it's one and done and they never buy from you again, you have $1.20. If they make 3 purchases on average, then you've got $3.60. So you can see that the right-hand side of that equation is just as valuable, if not more so. And I tell people to focus on that right side of the equation more so than the first 3 variables there. So conversion rate and lifetime value are the 2 most optimizable ones.
And when you're calculating for lifetime visits, you need to understand what
lifetime
you can
value,
lifetime
purchases.
Value.
Yeah, there's a different one you can put across on this. Yeah.
When you're calculating that, you need to keep into context how long you can survive as a business. Because if you know that your average consumer is going to purchase from you 4 times, but each purchase is spread 3 years apart, and you're not going to live past that 3 years.
You can't cash flow that far.
Yeah.
You have to invest usually 2 rules in this. So if you look at your customer acquisition cost versus your lifetime value, those at least have to have a 3-to-1 ratio to be, and optimally even better. I've seen some e-com businesses with 8 and 9 and 10-to-1 ratios on that. And the second caveat is it has to pay back in a year. So if you're a subscription service and you have a limited amount of capital, you really just look at the first 12 months of that. So now take that equation, there's 5 variables in there, and let's make it a little more complex. So let's say you're advertising on 1,000 different keywords on Google. Well, you have to do that equation 1,000 different times because each keyword is going to generate a different average order value, B, a different conversion rate. So if someone Googles buy my product, buy cowboy boot, buy red cowboy boot, they're going to convert at a pretty high level. If they, on the other hand, say, what are the best boots or something similar, it'll be less. So you have to do that same equation 1,000 times if you have 1,000 different keywords. And the lifetime value is different as well, too.
And then attach a multiplier based on where they're at in the buyer's journey. So if they're, for Country Outfitter, for example, if they're looking up Country Outfitter red boot, you can bid, X amount of times on that versus what boot did Carrie Underwood wear, last year.
Exactly. So you look at the shopping funnel, and we look at it as 4 phases. So the bottom, the closer they are to the 4th phase, where they actually pull out their credit card, usually the more you can build. And what's interesting on this is there's another way you can change this equation. So we talked about the per visit value. Well, what if you can get them to come visit 10 different times, 10 additional times, and each time they come back, they have a 1% conversion rate. So that's another huge multiplier. So take those 5 variables, put them in a bracket, and multiply it times number of visits. And you might think I'm crazy, because most e-commerce sites, you go there, one, and you're done, and you never come back. And so your per visit multiplier should, in most cases, be 1. Well, what if you get their email address? And what if your email content is really super engaging, and on average, anyone that gives you their email address, and you get 70 or 80% of people to give you their email address, they come back 10 or 12 or 15 times. Well, you just won the game. You just completely changed the equation for your favor. So if you take our old example, $100 purchase minus $50 cost of goods minus $10 fulfillment cost, that's $40, times a 3% conversion rate, what's that, $1.20? 3 lifetime purchases is $3.60, and the math is going to be totally wrong.
So I'm glad you can do this math in your head.
Right, so you're at $3.60, and then let's say they come back on average 10 times, and you convert 10% of your initial visitors into buyers. Now you're at $36. Boy, you can arbitrage a really good traffic there. And if the math's wrong, hey, we'll fix it in the post edit, and it'll look right. Just ignore the numbers that say and look at the ones that pop on the screen. Right?
I just see like a sad face of Joe popping up right now
poor
for editing.
Poor Joe's back behind the camera. He's got a gun. He's angry with me.
And you use this, so a lot of that is built for PPC.
Right.
But you can use the exact same math for Facebook, for Instagram.
Oh, sure.
You just have to add in the entire funnel, and then you have to test it. I mean, ultimately, if you know, this is a great baseline, and it speaks to the fact that the better you are at the right side of the equation, the more you can spend to acquire a customer. The more you can spend to acquire a customer, the better business you're going to have ultimately.
Well, the right side's the multipliers, right? You can get exponential growth there. If you focus on the left-hand side of the first 3 variables there, so
you can only beat up a distributor so much.
Right. So your average order value is $100. Well, let's cross-sell, let's upsell. Great idea, but you're only going to take that to 110 or 105 or maybe even 115 if you're good. Cost of goods, right? Go call your manufacturer, beat them up, tell them you want the best prices. Please do that. That's just operationally sound business. But
every 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not going to get them from 50 to 10. You're going to get them from 50 to 45 or 50 to 48 or 50 to 49. So not a huge multiplier. Do the math. And then fulfillment costs. Yeah, great. Call UPS. Call FedEx. Good luck. You're not going to have any luck beating them up within reason. I mean, you might be able to, when we grew to $100 million of revenue, we were able to cut our shipping costs almost in half. But you're not going to be able to do that unless you've got that. So,
and I think that the last part of it is when you look at it from this equation, it's the same thing that when you're working in a startup. What is the greatest opportunity to 10x or 100x what I'm doing with the effort I'm going to put in? Because you're going to put in just as much effort calling and beating up your distributor as you are crunching your data and your numbers to figure out how to either increase your website conversion, increase your lifetime visits. So where you have to ruthlessly prioritize across this algorithm, across this metric, to find the greatest opportunity to exponentially increase your success, and then you go to the next greatest opportunity, and then you go back down from there.
But if you look at every e-commerce unicorn, and there have been several, all of them have something. To start, they all have decent gross margins. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're not going to find for the most part, maybe Jet's the exception there, but I mean they were not. Another story for another day. Yeah. But so you have decent gross margins, but every single one of the e-commerce unicorns, look at Warby Parker and Honest Company and Casper and a few others, every one of them have one of those three multipliers, something special. Yeah. So lifetime value, Old Dollar Shave Club has a tremendous lifetime number of purchases. Mm-hmm. Conversion rate, good examples of that abound. And then lifetime number of visits. Look at every single e-commerce site that gets your email address and then follows up with a really good email flow after. Mm-hmm. So, all right, we've beaten this one to death. We have one more question, or is that it today?
Yep, we got one more.
All right.
So this comes from Reddit, and the Redditor asks, I've spent $200 on advertising with my Shopify store, and I have no results. I need help, and I'm drop shipping. So,
do we have the Dream Crusher hat? I don't have the Dream Crusher hat today.
It's up there.
Is it up
here?
You can
grab it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even going to put it on today.
We got
so you're arbitraging dropship business. Mm-hmm. Off of Google or Facebook or something other. You spent $200 and you hadn't made any money.
Yeah.
Duh.
And
of course you haven't.
Yeah. and this is what's so interesting. You have to have the thesis right before, like our entire rant the last 10 minutes on a calculator on understanding your numbers and margins. You have to have the right thesis going into it, otherwise you're never going to be able to succeed.
Yeah, so do that math, and if it spits out something positive, do it. But the problem is you're arbitraging, and that's probably a short-lived opportunity.
Yeah.
In fact, if you know what arbitrage is, it's buying something cheaper than what it's worth. And so if Ford stock is trading on an American stock exchange and the European stock exchange, and it's 2 cents cheaper in Europe, we'll buy it in Europe, and you've instantly made, and then resell it in America, you've made 2 cents without any risk. Yep. And so that's basically what you're doing. If you buy a Google click for 50 cents and you make 55 cents off of it profit-wise, well, you're arbitraging. That's a pretty slim margin, and it's not going to last long. So again, you've got to go back to how you work on those multipliers, and that is through building a brand. What's the lifetime number of purchases here? Why would someone buy from your dropship store instead of Amazon? Well, the short answer is they won't. This was a really good model in 2001 when I really started in e-com, but you just can't do this for any period of time. Don't you agree?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if your goal is to, like you in 2001 and early, you were printing money, arbitraging AdWords to AdSense.
We sell grills, and you could buy the word barbecue grill for a nickel, even a penny in some places. So it's hard not to make, when you're making $3 or $4, you can arbitrage your way to a really nice business. And it lasted until 2008.
Yeah, and so if you're in a new space and you're arbitraging that new space, look at the people who had success with Bitcoin. They bought it low, they sold it high. And so that works, but it doesn't work for a super long time unless you have great pattern recognition, and then you go for each new thing that's happening. If you're building a store, don't get caught up in the fantasy of starting a dropshipping business and then making $1 million. The majority of the people, and not all, I'm not speaking in absolutes here, but the majority of people, exactly.
If you're asking how to spend $200, you're not the guy that's going to find that opportunity. Yeah. Let's just be blunt.
Yeah, and so what I would encourage you to do is think about why you make the purchases you make. Right. It's not because it's an amazing product that's dropshipped from Alibaba. If it's the only product that is sold, it's no longer an arbitrage. But if you're not building brand, if you're not giving a consumer a reason to purchase from you that differentiates you from the 100,000 other people selling the exact same product, you're not going to win unless you're the first mover in that space and you grab up market share. If you're breaking into a market that you don't have market share in, you've got to do something different. You've got to have free shipping both ways. You've got to have a return policy that's different. You've got to have an amazing customer service aspect. You've got to do something to differentiate yourself, and that's for all e-commerce businesses, but especially in dropshipping. you've got to be able to do something. And if you're drop shipping and it's a 2-week lead time for delivery, you're starting the game in a very bad spot.
Yeah. It's just hard. I mean, you look. What's the end goal? It's to build a business worth a lot of money that is profitable. And if you, the value of business is the lifetime value of its future discounted cash flow. And by that definition, if you're building an arbitrage business and it's going to last for a year, it's not worth very much.
Yeah.
So instead, put the same kind of effort into building a real brand, one that is uniquely differentiated and is going to be here forever. And those are the types of businesses we funded in our little e-commerce fund, and the types of businesses venture capitalists are funding all on the East and West Coast. They're highly differentiated models. I mean, look at Chewy. Yeah, they sold some other people's stuff, but they also got people onto a subscription. They also, once they had that arbitrage done, they would shift into a selling their own dog food.
Yeah. And they use
$3.3 billion later, right? I mean, not too bad.
Well, and Chewy's a great example of they use customer data to ridiculously personalize the experience,
right?
And it just crushed it. But we'll talk about it later, guys. Very long episode for you today. Hope you enjoyed it. Question of the day: I want to hear from the audience what you think your store is doing, or what you think people can do to differentiate and create a truly unique experience within their e-commerce platform. Love to hear your thoughts, your comments. Let's have some discussion in the comments below. And besides that, hope you'll have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk to you soon.